My name is Mike, I play WoW, and today I want to talk to you about World of Warcraft Midnight. The official unveiling of WoW's next expansion is so close we can measure it in days, and that means it's prediction season. Or specifically, time for me to say all my predictions out loud, so if they turn out to be true, I can say I thought of them, and if they turn out to not be true, I can just ignore this video. I have lots of thoughts about what could happen in Midnight. An expansion we know a few concrete things about. We're going back to Quell the Lost, we're fighting back the Void, and we're reuniting the scattered elven tribes of Azeroth. Beyond that, it's still a mystery. So today, here are 5 predictions, but also alongside them, 5 far less likely sleeper predictions for what could happen in Midnight. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment. You can write whatever you want down there. You can write papaya for all I care. It all helps. I'm just too excited. Let's go. Prediction number 1. Welcome back, Sylvanas. Start off with a softball, right? This one feels like a given. We're walking back into Quell the Lost, the region where Sylvanas, for all intents and purposes, lost everything. She was never allowed to die, she failed to defend her city, and now we're trying to reunite the elven tribes. But we also conveniently have 3 elven sisters that could use a little reuniting of their own. More importantly, in both the comics concerning the Windrunner sisters, and in a line from Venari in the Ghosts of Koresh patch, it's strongly hinted that the Void has this primal, powerful fear of the realm of death. And that's a force that Sylvanas is all too familiar with, and happens to have just spent an awful lot of time with. Other creators have talked about this point. I'm sure I've heard Taliesin and Evitel talk about it at least once, but I can't remember the video that it's in. But this serves as basically a perfect wrap for Sylvanas' arc, bringing her full circle to defend her home, and maybe even properly die. Is it cliche? A little. But cliches become cliches because they work. And sometimes they work so well, they feel inevitable. I think this prediction is a slam dunk guaranteed success. So let's talk about the long shot of this instead. Sleeper pick. Sylvanas takes back Silvermoon. Wait, this is actually a bad order to do these in. This is gonna make more sense in a second. I lied, put a pin in this one. Prediction number 2, we will be reclaiming zones from the Void. This is like a part gameplay, part narrative prediction. Obviously, the entire crux of this expansion is us battling the Void. But I think it's important to talk about how we battle the Void. I personally feel like Metzen was pretty clear at BlizzCon that the goal of this expansion is to banish the Void, quote unquote, forever. At minimum, we will have crushed their destructive dreams for the Sunwell. Now, this could be defending Azeroth from the invasion itself, but what I'm proposing is that the situation plays out a little bit like this. Pre-patch, or at the start of the expansion, the Void Gods descend upon Quell the Lost. That's a decent chunk of land, and one that I expect is about to get bigger. Check out the history of Quell the Lost video I'm linking somewhere on screen if you want to know more about the history of that place. And my suspicion is that the bulk of the campaign will be beating back the Void out of these zones, slowly reclaiming territory with the forces of Azeroth, until we've eradicated what we can of our purple enemies. And it's possible that Silvermoon will act as the hub for our activities. People keep saying this, but I can't actually find where that idea has come from, so if you know, put it in the comments. But I have a different sleeper idea for what could happen in terms of beating back the Void out of these places. Sleeper pick. We reclaim from the outside in. Picture this. At the start of the expansion pack, a rift opens over Silvermoon, and the Void descends. Panicked people are forced to flee as tendrils spread out across Quell the Lost, making their way further and further south. We rally with the forces of the light in the areas below the Ghostlands, maybe even a new revamped Eastern Plaguelands, and then push north, one new zone at a time, because the revamp will almost assuredly be expanding the size of all of these zones, until we make our way to Silvermoon, a city that we lay siege to take back. This is based on absolutely nothing, but it would make the campaign feel like a campaign. Like we are with the forces of light and we are taking back the places that the darkness took over. And remember that pin I told you to put in my sleeper pick for Sylvanas? That's because if this is true, this would make Sylvanas' arc not end with a successful defense of Silvermoon. It would end with her taking back the city that she lost to Arthas so many years ago. There's something about this that feels more Sylvanas to me. The idea that it's not a huge defense, but a powerful offensive push that rounds out her journey on Azeroth. It only really works if we're going out in terms of zones though. And speaking of zones, prediction number 3, Zul'Aman as a zone. Everyone's talking about the elves, everyone's talking about the elf zones. what about the trolls? The Amani are a big part of Quel'Thas's history. They ran the show there long before the elves showed up, and they've clashed with them many times between the initial founding, the troll wars, the second war, and more. And ostensibly they are still holed up in their sprawling city of Zul'Aman. We've never seen any of the Amani lands fleshed out in greater detail than the Zul'Aman instance. And even when you look at the in-game map versus the map of the Ghostlands versus the map of Zul'Aman, it just feels like there should be more land here, right? And I'm assuming the Amani don't just dip out when the Void invades their home. So in the spirit of continuing to believe we're getting a landmass expansion in Midnight, I'm throwing my hat in the ring for Zul'Aman, or at least a big troll zone. And that makes my sleeper an Amani troll allied race, or customization options. Okay, I acknowledge there's a lot of problems with this one. More recently in lore, we have references to the Amani becoming less hostile in places like Zuldazar, but historically, the Amani have not been friendly to really anyone. They hate the Alliance for, the war. They hate the Void and the Aqir from, that war. They hate the Horde from that war. And the Amani have long memories and long grudges. But in spite of all that, I don't know, viewers, I just have a feeling. The smart money is probably still the Heronir being the next actual allied race. They also fit the expansion theme since they clearly have shared DNA between Night Elves and Trolls. Actually, now that I'm talking about this, I wonder if the Heronir are like the way that we bridge the gap to become allies with the Amani Trolls. Maybe that's like a sleeper pick. Anyways, in spite of all that, I kind of just think the Amani would make cool options for troll players. They've always had slightly different body types relative to playable trolls. They're like a little bulkier. You could probably just throw the orc skeleton on them, maybe. This might even be the orc skeleton. And it would provide some cool new theming for players who don't just want another race of elves or dwarves. It would also theoretically be neutral since I don't think we're ever getting a faction-locked race again. I don't know. But their history would make the interactions with both factions interesting, especially if this next prediction comes true. Prediction 4, Arathi Empire backstory. The Arathi Empire that we find in Hallowfall is an expedition from the Empire of Arathor thousands and thousands of years before, when a portion of humans from that empire and elves went off across the sea to find what was on the other side of Azeroth. That is literally all we know about their founding. And now we're going to be stomping up the entire area that all that history comes from, which means this is sort of another softball prediction. I think we're going to start to get some real detail on why that group left, what they were planning on doing, and what they wanted to find. That could even potentially seed us with more information on what's going on in Avaloran, particularly if the sleeper is true. Speaking of which, the sleeper here is the Arathi Empire is coming here. I think Blizzard is saving the continent of Avaloran for after the last Titan. Let's get that out of the way. I don't think we're seeing Avaloran, but we do know that the Hallowfall Arathi were sent here by their empire to fight in Renalash, the prophesized final cataclysmic conflict between the light and dark, which sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? And the reason the Arathi were stranded is actually very simple. They sent a bunch of mages that could make portals back to the Arathi Empire, but all the mages died in the shipwreck. Now, put yourselves in the shoes of an emperor. You just sent a bunch of boats as a landing party for what's supposed to be the biggest battle of your entire religious belief system. You also sent them with a bunch of mages to make portals, ostensibly so you could port over troops to fight in this battle. You're sitting, expecting a portal to pop up any day now. Some time passes. That's weird. They must have taken a detour. More time passes. Did they stop to go to the bathroom? Even more time passes. There's a disturbing lack of portals, and you're left going, beans. They didn't make it. But Renalash is still gonna happen, right? And if you truly believe this fight could end existence, you're probably sending more troops over. I suspect we're gonna see an Arathi landing party this expansion, folks. They're gonna show up in like 12.1 or 12.2 and be a big old bolstering force for our side as we continue to press against the Void. I'm actually not even sure I would consider this a sleeper. I'm just making it one because I don't know how they're going to justify not showing us Avaloran in some capacity. Maybe I'm just wrong on that. This video is getting a little long for my taste, so this next one's going to be fast. Prediction 5. Xal'atath dies. Look, I think Xal'atath is a great villain. She's been real fun to watch, but I think the game is pretty laid out at this point. And Eridikron helped Zal with the goal of luring the Titans back to Azeroth. It also seems clear, based on lore drops from the last 2 expansions, that the Titans are going to be a little nefarious in their own right. And I suspect that's going to happen in the last Titan. I just don't think there's going to be room for Zal to play. She's going down. And the sleeper is that the Aqir are here. Okay, confession time. This one's like barely related to the Xal'atath point, I guess. But there's a bit of rarely mentioned lore about the fact that the Amani and the Aqir were at war on these lands thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, and that the Aqir ruins still persist underneath Quel'Tha Loss. So I think there's a non-zero chance we see a decent Aqir presence in Midnight. As a reminder, the Aqir wound up divided into a whole bunch of different sub-races. You had the Karaji of Ahn'Qiraj, you have the Mantid, who we see a lot in Pandaria, and the Nerubians, who we just dealt with. I have no idea which are going to show up, but either way, I think we're going to see some of them. Okay, is that everything? I think that's everything. No, I got one more. I lied. More Paladin races. What are we doing here, guys? We spent a whole quest arc in Dragonflight setting up the fact that Tyr's Hand is building out a new sect of paladins, and it included a bunch of races that can't even be paladins right now. This goes beyond the Night Elf Paladin and Legion. I think nearly every race, except for maybe Void Elves, could, should, and will be paladins in Midnight. Send tweet. Okay, that's actually it. If it's not clear, I'm super hyped for Midnight. So much so that I'm prepared to be completely wrong about all of these and not feel bad at all. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching. Your support means an absolute ton. I would love to hear down below what predictions you have for Midnight. Maybe I'll turn them into like a Vegas odds board or something, because I'm going to be on vacation the announcement week and probably won't record anything until the week after. Also, if you enjoyed this, maybe tell a friend about the channel. That would be cool. For now though, I'm going to go play WoW instead of just talking about it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Okay, bye.